All right, we're going to do a little bit of a Sunday audio podcast, the occasion being that I have to run to the supermarket to get some food for a family barbecue. In any case, so beyond that, this podcast is going to be about the very timely topic of vaccine mandate resistance and also some of the implications of it and what I think are good ideas in terms of how to reverse a lot of the social and political changes that we're seeing at the very basic grassroots level, as they say. And I think that the word grassroots has been corrupted because you see people who are very active with organizations calling themselves grassroots activists. And that's not really what it means. Grassroots means that it is people who previously were not very involved, who suddenly are galvanized and are suddenly they want to be in the ring, right? That's what grassroots really should mean, instead of somebody who's already been very active, especially if they've been part of an organization. So, in my opinion, most of us could become grassroots, at least activists in specific issues, not maybe in politics itself. One note before I really get into the topic and why I'm talking about it, there is the likely possibility that I'll do a live stream later concerning a number of contemporary issues. I think that the reason that you should tune in today, especially, is because I am going to try to see if I can get the Odyssey live streaming working. And for those of you that don't know, Odyssey is a YouTube alternative. It isn't really some place where I've grown very quickly over there, but I do like the interface. I do think it's a very cool. It's a very cool platform. I think that there's a lot of possibilities for it, and I personally will continue to try to at least use it to the best of my ability. And I'll talk a little bit more about alt tech or new tech or whatever people want to call it, hopefully during the live stream. But yeah, anyway, so this issue that we're talking about today is the growing preponderance of vaccine mandates in the country. And the reason that I actually tried to record something about this on Friday, and it really came out a little longer than I wanted it to, and I sort of lost focus in the middle. But I have a friend from college who is somebody I haven't really been in touch with for many years, and he actually, or I've been on and off in touch with him, but very sporadically, and usually like we'll send each other, or usually he'll send me birthday greetings because I can never remember anyone's birthday. But this guy actually messaged me and he asked, hey, what do I do about this? I'm really unsure of whether to get the vaccine. And because I don't feel that it's my place to give people a medical recommendation, even though I'm very skeptical of this specific group of vaccines because of the process that went into it and the lack of a regular pipeline from the synthesis of it all the way through the approval. I didn't want to give a yes or no answer. I said to him, you have to discuss it with your doctor, and you have to be sure that it is something that you don't think will create side effects for you that would be basically worse than the actual COVID virus itself. And that's the most honest answer that I can give, because I do think that there are people who are under a condition where they could benefit because they're so at risk for getting the virus that maybe a vaccine, especially at the beginning, maybe a vaccine would at least be something that would liberate them from personal solitude. And this is especially for people in at-risk populations, senior citizens, and the like. And there were people that I said, it might not be a bad idea, and especially a coworker that I know who was elderly. And the fact is that there are people who have taken it and they've been healthy and they haven't seen any side effects as of yet. But now we do know, unfortunately, that these vaccines all have, they have an expiration in terms of their effectiveness, and eventually you have to get these booster shots. And my opinion is that if it's something that is so sporadically effective and that it has such a temporary window of when it is actually going to afford you protection, then it's really not something that I think people should take. This is an issue where I see some people who never took the flu shot and they think that this is a different situation. It isn't. The flu shot is mainly introduced every year in order for healthy people to take it so that they can not spread the newest strain of the flu, but it's usually been ineffective, and it's while it does provide some some revenue for the companies that manufacture the flu shots, it's generally been wrong. It's been the wrong strain of the flu. It's a guessing game, and very likely the COVID is it's already shown signs of being an endemic virus. And my opinion, basically, and what I said to my friend, who is somebody who I respect a lot, and we went through a lot in college as project partners in terms of adversity and in terms of pressure and everything, is that if you have hesitancy and if you don't think it'll be medically useful for you, you should definitely get an exemption, because his company requires him to get the vaccine. And if they waive aside the exemption, you should basically say, well, I'm not going to take this because you're basically trampling on my legitimate medical or if failing medical, religious exemption. You're basically treating me as if I don't have any right to object to this treatment because it could be either harmful to me or violate my personal beliefs. So either you let me continue to work here without taking it, or you fire me. And in many companies, I think that if enough people do that and stand up and say, this is something that you can't, this is a bridge too far. You can tell me what to do when I'm in the four walls of this office and I'm doing the things that you want me to do in terms of performing my job, but you're not going to make health decisions for me that could jeopardize my long-term health simply because you want to comply with a dubiously conceived vaccine mandate that comes from the federal government. And that's another thing I tried touching on when I tried recording this before. The fact is that if you're a person who's a senior level of the company who can make the decision on whether to abide by this mandate or not, and you're blindly saying, well, this is the way it is, we're gonna force everyone who doesn't have it yet and has objections to it to get the vaccine or not get it or not work here, I think you might be walking into a massive bear trap that could basically slice your legs off. So the issue is that if this is actually going through litigation right now, and this trickles up to the higher courts, whether they're the circuit courts or federal courts or the DC Circuit Court or and ultimately the Supreme Court, which there's no reason it can't go up there because it is a very charged issue. If you think that this executive order is free and clear from being struck down, and that your company will not then have to carry some of the legal burden of complying with what could be an unconstitutional and unlawful executive order, then you could be putting your company at serious legal risk. And I would say that many of these companies who are holding off and saying, look, we're going to study the situation and see what's going to happen, and we don't know whether this will stand or not. And I think that this is one of the rare instances where fence sitting for a company is actually better, right? I don't know if there's many companies that are brave enough to say, well, we don't care about this, we're not going to enforce it. But I think that there are companies that are going to say, hey, we're gonna wait and see, right? So that the wait and see approach might be the most important, might be one of the smartest things for some of these companies. And then of course there are companies that feel that they're too big to fail and that they have the right to basically tell people that, they will make their health decisions for them, or they can't work there. There are many companies like that. And there could, in fact, be companies where they're deluded simply because they believe that this is the right thing to do, to force people to take a pharmaceutical product, okay? And this goes into the broader issue of what I think people can do in order to reverse the trend of both autocratic mandates like the vaccine mandate, of issues like, all of the basically restrictive behavior that the government is doing right now. Here are some ideas, okay? And it's already worked, for instance, with regards to the nomination of David Shipman to head the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, okay? It was largely grassroots activism by people in the firearms owner community that torpedoed his candidacy, because they made it clear to a number of senators who aren't even pro-firearms, who are in many cases or at least they're very lukewarm about it, that if you vote for this man, you're done here. We're going to mobilize against you, and we have the momentum. And especially since the president right now is very unpopular, are you going to run on your personal name when we can just tie you to being a puppet to one of the most ineffective presidents of all time? So that's one of the ways that it's already worked, because David Shipman he had a real chance to become the head of the ATF, and lo and behold, despite the Democrats having nominally a majority in the Senate, he did not get into that position. Now, how does that translate into something like vaccine mandates? Well, what we were seeing is, especially in states like Massachusetts, and I think in New York it's developing a little bit more slowly. The state is having to deploy increasingly because there are many staff leaving hospitals because of vaccine mandates, and not only hospitals. So there's a lot of nurses leaving because of vaccine mandates, leaving these hospitals and care facilities. So the Massachusetts government has decided to deploy the Massachusetts National Guard, and I'm sure that people left the Massachusetts National Guard over the vaccine mandate as well. It's happened already in a number of states. So I'm sure that they're already a little bit shorthanded. Now, Massachusetts has also apparently, and this is according to local media, the Worcester Telegram and Dispatch, I think it's called. I'll try to put the link below. But dozens of Massachusetts State Patrol troopers have already quit and said, wait, so you're not, and this is after the Massachusetts Supreme Court upheld the governor's vaccine mandate, Governor Charlie Baker, who is a Republican, by the way, so don't make this into a partisan issue. There are plenty of Republican morons, just like there have always been many Republican morons, and you can go through the decades and see that it's been a party that's been full of losers as well, but there have already been dozens of police officers or state troopers in this case who have said, hey, forget it. It's not worth it. It's not worth this thankless job where we have to risk our personal safety, be vilified by the media, be portrayed as racist and bigoted and whatever. It's not worth also risking our personal health for a vaccine, and they've resigned. And you're going to see that the results of this, so they've already had to deploy state guardsmen, National Guardsmen, in order to, buttress the the short-staffed hospitals, okay, the nurses and nurses' aides and technicians and things like that, they've already had to do that, and that's not really going to be a great situation, because the National Guardsmen, while they may be trained, if they're a medic in order to give emergency care, they're not necessarily going to be good for some of the more long-term care, and I hope, by the way, I really, really hope that they're not going to put them in some of these radiological areas where you sort of have to be savvy on the system and the software and everything. All right, the people are not like just you can't just put a square peg in a round hole. That's something that they're going to learn really easily soon. Like, one medical staffer does not equal every medical staffer. There's a lot of very complicated issues with that. So it is going to be effective, in my opinion. And if the results and consequences of this are going to lead to a lot of problems with healthcare in Massachusetts, I'm sure that you're going to see, waves of people in Massachusetts. They're going to see, I believe, a backlash, notwithstanding the fact that the population there is overwhelmingly dominated by some people who I think are so deluded and bought in so conclusively to the Kool-Aid. They've drunken the Kool-Aid so many times that you would think that they could never get back to some sort of reasonable state of mind. But I think that the consequences could lead to that, because when you have to actually bear when you have to actually experience the results of what you've done, people learn very quickly that their ideal is a real has basically ruined a situation that could have been not a problem before, right? So having a short-staffed hospital, people will come in for knee replacements, people will come in for whatever, like heart and artery bypass surgeries and whatever, and you're going to see that there's going to be more delays. There already are delays where I live in Ohio. And in states like Massachusetts and New York, is going to become even more acute. And by the way, it's starting in these states where there is no state mandate, but hospitals and healthcare systems are already abiding by the vaccine mandate at the federal level. And you're going to see that very quickly these providers are going to be at a crossroads. They're going to have to decide whether they can even keep the doors open. Are they going to be willing to turn away patients and have virtually no way to make money in order to satisfy this federal mandate? You're going to see, and then also at a certain point, when does the court actually weigh in, right? And if the court weighs in and says, oh, this is constitutional, that doesn't change the fact that a lot of these people are not going to be vaccinated. They're going to be out of the healthcare system already, in terms of not being medical providers. So the problem doesn't go away if the vaccine mandate is upheld. So if you are a healthcare provider and you're in this situation, I would say that you should definitely resist complying with this and see whether they blink. Because I think that at a certain point, many of these hospitals will blink, and they'll start to realize that we can't really stand for this because we're going to collapse. What about outside of the actual medical field? What are things that people should be doing? Well, one thing I want to talk about, and I'll try to do this as briefly as I can, is try not to only limit this to your own personal community of people who are, like-minded or of the same ethnicity or the same religion or anything. And the reason I'm saying this is that there is a strong strain of anti-vax I'll just say it. Yes, there's a strong strain of anti-vax people within the Jewish community. There are also, there's a growing sector within the Jewish community of people who are, like myself, specifically skeptical of this issue where We don't want people to make rash medical decisions only in order to keep their jobs. And we don't think that your healthcare status should be public knowledge and that it should be registered with, or not necessarily public knowledge, but you should be registered with the government as to what vaccines you had and things like that. It's an invasion of privacy, right? Even if it is a good vaccine, even if it's a good treatment, is it really something where we should be forcing people to disclose their status to their employer and also have it stored on government databases? It's something that I would say that it should be across political lines and across ethnic and religious lines, that this is an idea that's going to lead to tyranny that'll hurt us all. So therefore, I would say that, if you are a person who is, you're organizing and talking with people within the Jewish community or within the Catholic community or your church or whatever, or your Methodist church or your Hindu ashram or your mosque or your Scientology temple or whatever they have, or who cares, okay? Or if you're somebody who you're part of this, one of these ethnic groups, Irish Americans against tyranny or something. By the way, so we'll get to an example soon. A real example. Don't pigeonhole yourself. You have to form alliances with people who are like-minded regardless of their other political leanings. Obviously, within reason, there are people, like if you are a person who is, like hypothetically, you come from Northern Ireland and you're from the IRA and you're against vaccine mandates, and you also have somebody from Northern Ireland who's part of the UVF, which is the less known Protestant group that has committed terrorist acts like the IRA. No, obviously there's a little bit of a bridge to that's hard to there's a gap that's a little too wide to bridge between those two tendencies. But if you see people that maybe normally you don't hang out with, but they agree with you on this, and you feel that you can work with them, you should, because the way that society is basically suppressed, the way that social reform and social social change is repressed is by dividing people. The divide and conquer strategy is one of the easiest ways that repressive governments find in order to prevent real change from happening. So yes, if you see somebody who is of a different race, different religion, different belief system, different gender, whatever it is, and they agree with you on a specific issue, and you want to have some sort of movement on this issue, you cannot afford to only stick with people who look, act, and believe everything the same as you. And it's something that's hard for people to do. I see it myself. Maybe I've practiced it myself, and it does get you nowhere. So you have to break through and talk to your neighbors who are not like you, and maybe you'll see. I'm not saying that you talk to them immediately and you solicit the issue from them, but I've had people within my own neighborhood who have talked to me and said, hey, I'm really worried about this myself, and it's not like an issue that I bring up, it's an issue that they bring up, and needless to say that it's almost universally people who say these things are just it's too much. You can't force people to take them. Okay, so finally, what are other things that you can do to change the system in a different direction beyond just the mandates? Well, what we're seeing lately is that at sporting events, such as the Yankees-Mets Subway Series a few weeks ago, such as at college football games, now at food courts and at different, I think there was at a department store I saw, and all sorts of very public events, there you see choruses of people shouting F Joe Biden. I hope that in the near future you're going to see that at more professional sports events if people go to them, right? And I think that there could be less people who do this at pro sports events because there is a huge contingent of people who think that the politicization of professional sports, whether it's the NBA, NFL, MLB, and less so in the NHL, but still, so there's less people who are politically conservative going to these events. But you are seeing, for example, I did see throughout the summer there were people who were going to Fenway Park and unfurling Trump won banners. Now this is a bigger issue now than whether Donald Trump won the election or whether the election was tainted. It's a different debate. It's not really what I'm trying to get into. But the F Joe Biden chants are not really about whether Trump won the election or not. They're about the terrible performance of the president. And if you start to see a situation where at large crowded events, okay, and you already are seeing this, but if it becomes so common that people are shouting this and you can't even have an event without this becoming the main chant, then you are going to see his poll numbers not just slide like they already have, they're going to really, really plummet. Because when you see in New York, in Staten Island, or in Queens or the Bronx, where people are blatantly, they're throwing up the middle finger at a president who won convincingly in the state of New York, it starts to show that it's far from being a situation where the country is united behind this guy. In fact, the country is increasingly united against him, partially because of things like the vaccine mandate, but also because of things like the Afghan withdrawal, also because of things like the rise of the surveillance state. You saw the January 6th defendant demonstration that happened, I think it was last week, where it became a huge joke because there were a lot of federal agents there, but the fact of the matter is that there should be demonstrations about this topic, not necessarily in DC, but elsewhere, and that people should be not shy about doing it. They should basically be saying that it's enough of this violation of due process, where people are not afforded their proper, whether it's legal representation or they're kept in solitary confinement. So things like this are good, but a new development that this vaccine mandate has opened up is that you are seeing people from Black Lives Matter New York, specifically, not Black Lives Matter nationally, but the more rogue New York group that's within the Black Lives Matter constellation, and they've said, well, yeah, we are going to protest against the vaccine mandates. We invite people, including Trump supporters, to come stand with us. And my message is that if you're in the New York area and you're hesitating to attend these rallies because they happen to be a lot of BLM supporters, no, you should go there. You should, and especially if you're somebody who feels strongly about this, make connections with people there and show them that this is a time to break down those silos that I was talking about. Because yes, there are tensions and real divisions between the Black community and the Hispanic community and white people. The white community as such it exists isn't really that organized. I want to just put that out there. But the Jewish community, there's a lot of divisions that keep us apart, and that's why the change is so hard to accomplish. Because while everybody is squabbling about who is the real, who's the real victim, who's the real oppressor, who's the real chosen people, who's the real prophet, so while all this is going on, you do have people who are very successful within all of these communities, and they're cohabiting together within the institutions, within the establishment. You see people who are Muslims, Christians, Catholics, Jews within the establishment who are laughing at the people from the broader communities at the bottom, and they're saying, oh, this is easy because you can keep them divided, you can keep them from standing up on this particular issue, and they're none the wiser because they think that it's much worse to agree with somebody who's much different from you rather than work with them on something that's important and risk betraying, I guess, your basic nature or something like that. So that's about it for right now. Please like, share, and subscribe. Remember, I may be doing a live stream later. Hopefully I'll be able to get the Odyssey live stream to work, which I haven't tried yet. So fingers are, fingers on the button. And you can also find me not just on Odyssey, but on BitChute, which is a great platform, but no live streaming yet. On Rumble, you can find me on YouTube. Unfortunately, still am a little bit dependent on YouTube for viewership. And also on Minds Gab and on Subscribestar if you want to donate. And have a great day. Also subscribe to the newsletter below and take it easy.